my name is Hannah, and today I'm joined by Samira, Hafsa, Sabrina, and Stephanie. And today we're coming to you from the Mindfulness and Wellbeing Club to talk about 10 ways you can live more mindfully. So this is just outlining some of the topics we're going to be covering today. So because it is 10 mindfulness meditation techniques, it does seem like quite a lot, but we'll be just breaking it down for you, and we'll also have timestamps for the video down below. And before we start the video, we just want to bring your attention to one of the added features for this video.
So I'm going to show you a little something our clinic has been putting together, summary sheets. If you click any of our recent videos, scroll down to the description section, and you'll find a summary sheet that contains some of the basic information you should know about, as well as help you remember information that's important to your health. If no link is there, that just means we don't have a summary sheet for that specific video. Once you open the summary sheet, you have the option to either download or print. Just visit File in the top left corner, press Download or Print.
Wonderful. So if you are interested in looking at our summary sheets, please feel free to look in the description box below. And just before I let Samira get us started, just to review what mindfulness is. So mindfulness is just a state of being present, being aware of our thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and environment, and just accepting them for what they are. And as you've seen in our previous videos, we often highlight the fact that it is very difficult to be mindful in our daily lives because life can get just so busy, as highlighted in the left image over here. They're kind of contemplating all these different thoughts while trying to be mindful. So we're hoping that through the practices we introduced today, you'll find yourself becoming more mindful and more satisfied in your daily life.
We're going to begin with an intention. So setting an intention at the beginning of the day can make you more mindful and motivated to accomplish your daily activities. So at the core of it, it's really about taking some time to ask yourself, what is your intention for today? To do. Okay, so what does it really mean when we say live your life with intention? Living a life with intention is choosing to live purposefully for a more fulfilling and meaningful life. And it's all about having a purpose and choosing to live as your authentic self. You want to make sure that the activities that you're engaging in your daily life are worthwhile and focus on the betterment of your life. And this will help to increase your self-awareness, meaning in your life, and overall happiness. And it really is focusing on the now and being honest with yourself, which is sometimes a little bit easier said than done. But living with intention is different for everyone, and it's very individualized, and you'll soon see the same idea of individualization for affirmations as well. So now that we know what intentions are, let's really focus on how we can set these intentions. So a lot of life coaches who are experienced with mindfulness suggest to focus on 3 pillars, which include the mind, the body, and the spirit. So remember, setting intentions, it's not just about physical and tangible items, but it's about how you operate internally as well. So for beginners, this is an easy 6-step process, which you've outlined on the side of the screen, just to get yourself acquainted with setting an intention. So first, it's reflection. Think to yourself, what values do you really want your intentions to embody? And how do you want to feel through your intention? And this is where that individualization aspect really comes in. The second step is to write these intentions down and reflect on what you've just written. So writing your intentions down on a piece of paper literally puts it in front of you instead of just having it in your mind. And this will also make your intentions more tangible. The third step is to keep your intentions positive. The way we say things in our head really affects how we think about them. So instead of saying something like, I need to be less stressed, you can say something like, be calm, relax, and trust that everything is going to work out in the end. Next, you want to make your intentions visible by writing them down and hanging them up in a spot where you spend a lot of time, whether that be on your mirror or sitting at your desk or maybe beside your bed. You're able to revisit them frequently, so you're provided with that constant reminder to keep yourself working on your intentions and to not let all of life's struggles get in the way for the goals that you have for yourself. The fifth step is to give yourself feedback and do mini check-ins throughout the day, or maybe choose a particular day during the week where you're able to look back and see if you're making progress. And being accountable and being honest with yourself is sometimes really hard, but it's necessary. And you can tell yourself like, oh, I'm doing great on this, but I also need to work on this. The last step is arguably the most difficult, is to have fun with it. This is supposed to be a mindful practice that is going to help make small changes in your life, and it's really supposed to help you improve your daily living. And setting intentions only for a day or two and expecting results is not really the best thing. It's a process. It's not perfect, and sometimes it doesn't work for everyone, but it's one out of many ways that you can focus on yourself and think about what is important to you and how you can reflect on those values. So these are just 3 examples that I have for how you can include intentions in your daily life. So you can say, today I intend to be compassionate, loving, and patient with others. I intend to find meaning in my work, be it the broadest dreams or the tiniest details. Or I intend that my physical body is 100% vital, healthy, and filled with energy. And now we'll be moving on to creating affirmations. So the next slide will detail what are affirmations. So affirmations are positive statements that you can help challenge and overcome the negative thoughts that pop into your head. And when you repeat these affirmations, you begin to believe it, and you can actually start making positive changes in your life. So some people consider affirmations to either be unrealistic or wishful thinking, but try looking at positive affirmations in this way. Many of us do repetitive exercises to improve our physical health at the gym, through home workouts, and affirmations are kind of like exercises for our mind and our outlook and perspective in life. And these positive mental repetitions can reprogram our thinking, and so that we begin to think and act differently in our life. And there's been several studies that suggest that affirmations can help you perform better. It can help mitigate like stress, and it can even help improve like self-esteem and other mental health conditions. Here are 5 easy steps to create your affirmations. So step 1, ask yourself, what thoughts do you wish to cultivate? This again is a period of reflection where you can think about the areas in your life that you would like to change. Some examples could be focused on your relationships with your friends, your colleagues, your family, or it could just be about having a more productive workday. Step 2 is making sure your affirmation is credible and achievable. You need to base it on a realistic assessment of the facts. For instance, imagine you're unhappy with your weight and you want to do something about it. You could use affirmations to help motivate you while you work out, and that will help change your exercise routine and your eating habits. However, it's not wise to affirm that you're going to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. That's why it's really important to keep it realistic. So step 3 is to turn the negatives into positives. If you're struggling with negative self-talk, write these persistent thoughts and beliefs that are bothering you down on a piece of paper. Then you can choose an affirmation that is the complete opposite of the thought that's kind of in your head. Step 4 is affirmations in the present tense. Pretend as if your affirmation is already happening to you, and this will help you believe that the statement is true in the now, in present. Also, it's good to use phrases like I am rather than I will. And lastly, say your affirmation with feeling. Affirmations can be a lot more effective when they carry emotional weight. You need to want this change to happen. So every time you choose and repeat this affirmation, it should be a phrase that is really meaningful to you. We can move on to the next slide, which will show some examples of affirmations. So here are a list of a couple. My well-being comes first. I am full of love. I choose to acknowledge what I cannot control and let go. I am grateful for what I have. You inspire others by being a wonderful friend, partner, parent, and partner. You can use I, or you can use you in like a different person. I am capable of getting through difficult times. I'm living in the present moment. I am getting healthier and stronger. I can do this. Something as simple as saying I can do this or I am enough will really help you. Or I'm letting go of all the things that no longer serve me. These are just examples of things you can use, but again, it's very individualized and you can choose whichever way suits you.
Perfect. And just moving on, so the next technique I want to talk about was just practicing gratitude. And this is something that continually is brought up in our mindfulness videos. And I know it is something that Dr. Kearney really values in his life as well. So, what are the components to gratitude? So, Robert Emmons, who is a psychology professor at the University of California, he's done a lot of research in this field in gratitude and why gratitude is so helpful and beneficial to all of us. And he says that there are two components to gratitude. So, an affirmation of goodness. So just acknowledging the fact that there's a lot of good things in our lives, there are a lot of great gifts that we've received, and also acknowledging the role that other people have played in providing part of that goodness in our lives. And so just acknowledging that a lot of the goodness we feel and receive is actually external to us, and that other people have provided that. So in past videos, we've brought a lot of our gratitude interventions kind of brought up. So one of them was a gratitude journal, thinking about 3 things that you are grateful for every day. So that is one of the things we always bring up. And today I wanted to bring up a new kind of technique that puts together mindfulness, gratitude, and just self-reflection all together. And that is called the 5-minute journal. And I believe this is also sold as a separate journal in itself at Indigo, if you want to look at that as well. But essentially, the journal asks you to complete or fill out 5 questions every day, 3 in the morning and 2 in the evening before bed. So in the morning, they ask you to consider, what are you grateful for? What would make today great? And a daily affirmation, which is exactly what Samira was just talking about. So an I am statement. And so that's for the morning, and kind of thinking about these positive things. So what are you looking forward to? What are you grateful for? Thinking about these things can make you have a positive outlook on the rest of the day. And now before bed in the evening, they also ask you to talk about 3 amazing things that happened today. They can be small, they can be tiny, they might not even seem that significant, but something that made you happy today. And how could I have made today even better? And I think this question can also apply to setting the intentions that you want to have for tomorrow. So it kind of all ties in together with everything that was just discussed. So the next section that I want to talk about was mindful breathing. And I don't think we've had a specific section in our videos yet where we talk about certain breathing techniques. So I want to just discuss kind of the various techniques that are shown to improve breathing in itself, as well as kind of make you less stressed and make you more calm. So I wanted to first delineate the difference between shallow and diaphragmatic breathing. So on the left, if you can see the slide here, diaphragmatic breathing, it's essentially when we're breathing from the stomach rather than from the chest. So typically in our daily life, we're always breathing with our chest, so we can feel our chest rise up and down. But when we're practicing diaphragmatic breathing, we're actually feeling our belly expand rather than our chest. And just as a small demo, if you want to follow along with me as I kind of show an example, if you want to place a hand on your chest and the other on your belly, and now I want you to breathe in slowly through the nose and let the air in so that the hand on your chest remains still, but your belly expands. So you can feel your belly kind of fill up with air, but you want to keep your chest completely still. And now with pursed lips, so kind of imagine yourself drinking from a straw almost, exhale that air. And you'll feel your belly kind of lose that air out into the atmosphere. Now, if you do that a couple of times, feeling your belly kind of expand, so rise and fall with your breaths, that would be referred to as diaphragmatic breathing. And this type of deep breathing is actually used in a lot of interventions for patients with COPD because it actually improves your muscle usage in your abdominal muscles, and it actually promotes better breathing because you're breathing more efficiently. So I know that many people often ask us about breathing techniques and kind of how to alleviate feelings of breathlessness. So if you want to try out this technique for yourself, please feel free to do so. And the 2 other techniques are kind of similar to one another, but the first one is called box breathing. It's also called square breathing. And this is when you're inhaling, holding, exhaling, and holding for the same number of counts. So you're inhaling for 4 counts, holding your breath for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, and holding your breath before repeating this cycle. And this is also known to alleviate a lot of stress. So this is often used for people who are working really high stress jobs, and it can also help with anxiety. And the 4-7-8 breathing is kind of similar because you're breathing in for 4 counts, but you're also holding for 7 seconds and then exhaling for 8 seconds, or 8 counts. And this is actually used a lot for people who have trouble sleeping. It helps with a lot of people who are suffering from insomnia, and it can actually kind of regulate your autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for making you feel more uptight and more stressed. So kind of down regulating that system will help you fall asleep more. So if you want to try that out right before you go to bed, I highly encourage it. I find it works for me as well. And I did think that in a previous video, I remember a patient mentioned to me that they found the 4, 7, 8 a little more difficult, just the holding the breath part for 7 counts. So if you are finding any of these difficult, always feel free to adjust them as needed. For example, the box breathing technique would be considered a 4-4-4 pattern. And if you find that too much, you can try starting out with a 3-3-3 and then moving upwards. As I know, it can still have benefits as long as it makes you feel comfortable while you're doing them. And so just a brief demo of mindful breathing, just for you to consider how you're breathing right now. If you wanted to pay your attention to this image on the right here, or even close your eyes, I want you to just think about the way you're breathing right now. So no need to adjust it, no need to do deep breaths. Just think about the way you're breathing in and breathing out as you're watching this video. And if you want to close your eyes, feel free to do so. And I just want you to feel where the air is going. So do you feel the air going kind of landing in your chest, or is it in your stomach, as we talked about with diaphragmatic breathing? So where is it that the air kind of travels and sits before you exhale it? Kind of think about those kind of sensations that you're feeling as you feel the air go in and out. Do you feel like the air that's entering or leaving is cold or warm? And even how is the rest of your body feeling as you're breathing in and out? These are all components of mindful breathing that you can practice on a daily basis, especially if you're feeling a little stressed. Kind of tuning into yourself and tuning into how you're breathing can really help. And so 2 meditation techniques that I want to talk about were the body scan and loving kindness meditation. So what is a body scan? A body scan is a form of meditation that encourages us to tune in to body sensations without judging from head to toe. So essentially, you're starting from either your head or your feet, and you're just paying attention to how you're feeling in all of those areas. So considering like whether you feel any tenseness or pain, for example, in your head or your shoulders or neck, and kind of moving downwards and considering how your awareness is affecting how you feel. And so a couple of steps that I've outlined here would be to just first focus on your breathing. And like I said before, just think about how you're breathing right now. And whatever feels most comfortable, starting from the head or the feet, just pay attention to any sensations you're experiencing. So these might be positive, you might not be feeling anything, but you also might be feeling pain. So kind of consider the different types of sensations you're feeling. And now if you are noticing any uncomfortableness, any emotions or thoughts that are coming to mind as you scan that body part, just acknowledge all of those and try to bring your awareness back to the activity of just acknowledging those emotions without labeling them as positive or negative. And as you release your awareness from this body part, we'll move on to the next one. So for example, if we're doing our head, kind of consider the different types of sensations you're feeling in your head. Do you feel hot? Do you feel cold? Where do you feel kind of when you're speaking, for example, where do you feel your brain kind of functioning? And kind of think about, all those body parts that make up who you are. And as you do so, you can release that awareness in your head and move on to your neck and shoulders. And think about any tenseness, pain that you're having, and any strain that you might have, and kind of consider all the different sensations throughout your body. So that is what a body scan would entail. And there are many body scan meditations where people kind of outline how you can do a body scan on YouTube. So please feel free to look up that as well. And the loving kindness meditation. So this one might be more unfamiliar to most people, and it's a practice that fosters compassion, love, and kindness, not only to ourselves, but everyone around us. So I've kind of outlined maybe categories of people that you might want to express loving kindness to. So for example, to yourself, to family and friends, to an acquaintance, so someone that you might not know well, but you want to wish good things to someone difficult, so someone you might be having a strained relationship with or are having a hard time kind of getting along with. And 5, to everyone. So that could include everyone from 1 to 4, but it could also just include everyone living on this planet, and you just want to wish really good feelings and good vibes to everyone around you. And I did put some prompts on the right side here. So a lot of the loving kindness meditations online, these phrases that you would kind of be expressing either to yourself or to others include, for example, if we're doing ourselves, we'd say to ourselves, may I be happy, may I be at peace, may I be loved, and may I be healthy. And so you're kind of repeating those mantras to yourself, but also kind of changing those, as I've put blanks in here, changing those to fit with your siblings or with your parents, with your close friends, to strangers, and even to like everyone on this planet, like I said before. So really it's up to you what kinds of phrases you want to use, but these are kind of examples that you could try to use and to practice loving kindness meditation. And it really makes you self-aware of the idea that you are part of a bigger thing beyond you when you're practicing loving kindness meditation, and just recognizing all those different people who exist in your life. So I really encourage you to try it out if you're interested.
Okay, so next I'm going to be speaking about how to be mindful in your thinking. So before we get into some mindfulness practices regarding your thoughts, next slide. We're going to answer the question, what exactly are thoughts and how do they work? So thoughts can be defined as an aim-oriented flow of ideas and associations that can lead to a reality-oriented conclusion. Now, there are thoughts going through our minds 24/7, and the human brain is always in some form of thought, including when we're trying to rest. So even while sleeping, we're still subconsciously thinking, which is what can lead to dreams, right? So according to the National Science Foundation, on average, a person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. And of those thoughts, 95% of them are repetitive, meaning that they recur numerous times. And studies also show that we tend to think more negatively than positively. And this can be alluded to a number of brain functions, including the stress hormone cortisol. And a recent study has found that repetitive negative thinking can lead to an increased risk of dementia. So as you can see, it's very important for our health and well-being to be cautious about our negative thoughts. Next slide, please. Okay, so thoughts actually pop into our heads all the time, and we don't always pay special attention to them. They can just enter and leave our minds on their own and without staying for very long. But some thoughts can attract our attention and we'll engage with them. And this is usually the case for thoughts that have a strong emotional pull to them. So we sometimes have trouble letting go of them and allowing them to just pass by on their own. And it's like our emotions are adhesive, and that makes emotional thoughts stay stuck in our minds and not go away no matter how hard you try. So sometimes if you're feeling anxious, you tend to get stuck on worrying thoughts. If you're feeling sad, you tend to get stuck on thoughts of regret or disappointment. And if you're angry, you might get stuck on thoughts of being treated unfairly or having been wronged. So these are just some examples of how we can sometimes get stuck on our thoughts. Now, how can we go about being a bit more mindful about our thoughts and not allowing ourselves to kind of get stuck on them? And I'll be speaking about 2 different mindfulness techniques of how to do just that on the next few slides. Okay, so the first of these is actually something called thought clouds. And this is a mindfulness technique that asks people to step back from their thoughts and just observe them from a distance without perceiving them as negative. And we have to just imagine that our thoughts are like clouds and that they're very, very distant from us and they're just floating by. And separating our thoughts from ourselves into clouds can give us space to regroup and allow our minds to become calm. So let's do a short demo together now to try to understand how to practice this technique. So the first step is to get into a comfortable position. You might want to lie down and pretend that you're looking up at the sky at the clouds. And if you're lying down, just let your feet fall to the sides and place your hands on the ground and just get comfortable. If you're seated, just make your spine tall and release all the tension from your body. And you may want to also close your eyes if that makes you feel more comfortable. So the next step is to focus on your breathing, and Hannah touched on breathing earlier in the presentation. So just following the demo that she did for diaphragmatic breathing, you can just gently inhale to fill up your lungs until your belly expands, and then exhale. And repeating this exercise on your own, just allow it to kind of make your body become relaxed and full of breath. And after about 10 breaths in and out, you're slowly move your intention into your mind. So what we just did is that you would be spending about a couple moments kind of noticing your breath. And then now we're going to kind of shift into kind of noticing our thoughts. And noticing means that you're acknowledging that something's there, but you don't necessarily have to do something about it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with our thoughts now. So that leads into the third step, which is to allow your thoughts to flow in one at a time. So think to yourself, is there anything that you're excited about, worried about, happy about? And just allow the thought to act as a cloud and observe it from a distance. And then you can decide what to do with that, which is going to be our fourth step. So is this thought something that is important to you, and do you want to allow it to stay, or do you want it to float away? And sometimes you might think one way about a thought, but if you change your perspective, that'll actually change the way that you think about it. So for example, a cloud might appear as a scary animal, but if you kind of tilt your head, it'll start to appear like a happy animal, like a bunny. And even if it still appears like a scary animal, it'll eventually float away. So there's nothing to kind of worry about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this activity, and I encourage you guys to practice this as often as you can in your own time if you want to. So we're going to be moving on to the next technique, which is called thought labeling. And this one essentially involves engaging with your thoughts from a distance and kind of labeling them before letting go. So you can couple this technique with the thought clouds activity if you would like, or you can practice this one on your own. And this technique could be particularly beneficial if you find it difficult to kind of just let your thoughts simply pass by. Labeling thoughts can also make us more emotionally aware and in tune with our thought patterns. So I'm going to go through a couple of different ways that you can label our thoughts. And this part is quite open-ended, so feel free to use these labels or use some other labels based on what you would like. So the first one is labeling it as useful or not useful. And this can help you decide if a thought is constructive or counter-constructive. And it's quite simple, but it applies to virtually all thoughts, and it can be very beneficial. The second one is identifying the type of thought. So this one requires a bit more depth, and it involves classifying the thought according to its function. So maybe you could label it as a judgment, as something you're planning, as a fear, as a memory, or really anything else that you see fit. And then another way to label your thoughts is based on physical sensation that the thought might make you feel. So for example, if a thought may make you feel cold or warm, or any other way, you can just label it based on that as well. So each time, simply label your thought and become aware of it, and then acknowledge it. But then if you would like, you can always just let it go, right? So this can help you understand your thoughts without getting stuck on them in a counterproductive way. So that brings me to the end of the section on being mindful with your thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this section.
And so another example of a mindfulness exercise is called the 5 senses exercise. And the goal is to calm down your mind by using your 5 senses to focus on your environment instead of your thoughts. So this exercise is really good because it can be done anywhere, anytime, and you don't really need any other materials other than the stimuli that you have to notice with your 5 senses. So on the next slide, we have the steps to complete this exercise. So again, using your 5 senses, you want to acknowledge 5 things that you can see around you, 4 things that you can touch around you, 3 things that you can hear around you, 2 things that you can smell around you, and 1 thing that you can taste. Okay, so let's try this together. So first we're going to notice 5 things that we can see. So take a few seconds to look around you and become aware of your environment. Try to pick out something that you wouldn't usually notice. So let's take a few seconds to do that. So for me, I'm noticing things that I usually don't notice. So for example, a photograph of my parents, a paperweight that my sister gifted me, a book that I used to read a lot as a child, a bubble tea cup that I got a few days ago and really enjoyed, and a bracelet that I got on vacation once. Okay, so next we're going to look at 4 things that we can feel. So bring attention to the things that you're currently feeling, like the texture of your clothes or the smooth surface of the table on your hands, really just anything. Okay, so for me, I feel a cool breeze from my window, and that makes me appreciate the warmth and the softness of my hoodie. I feel that I have a pretty cushy chair and a cool, smooth table. Okay, so next we're gonna notice 3 things that we can hear. So look for the little background noises that, again, you don't usually notice. So maybe the birds chirping outside or an appliance humming in the next room down. Okay, so for me, I hear wind chimes from my neighbor's backyard. I hear, I think, some kids playing basketball along the driveway, and I hear my neighbor doing some construction work in his backyard. Okay, so fourth, we're going to notice 2 things that we can smell. So bring attention to scents that you would usually filter out, either pleasant or unpleasant. Maybe it's the whiff of the pine trees outside or some food cooking in the kitchen. Okay, so I can smell wood chips because my dad is doing construction in the basement, and I can also smell, again, the freshness of the air coming in through my window. And so finally, we're going to notice 1 thing that we can taste. So you might not have anything in your mouth right now, but maybe later or before in the day or even a week ago when you had something really good, what did you notice? So for me, because I mentioned that bubble tea cup earlier, I remember that I really, really enjoyed that drink. And the first thing that I noticed was how tart. There were these little passion fruit seeds inside, despite it being a sweet drink. And those are really tart to bite onto. So yeah, so that's it for this exercise. I hope you guys found it kind of relaxing. On the next slide, we have just a general review. You should know that this exercise works great on walks, and it makes you more focused on what's happening around you rather than where you need to be later. So although we finished this quickly, just know that it's meant for you to take all the time that you want and need, because it's a mindful, relaxing experience. And there are so many sensations that you would feel and see and notice outside. So again, don't be afraid to try it outdoors. And yeah, so this is just a simple infographic that you can review in case you need the reminder.
Okay, so we're now going to explore another way to integrate mindfulness practices into our everyday lives through something known as mindful eating. So using mindful practices such as focusing on our thoughts to eat with intention can really allow ourselves to be attuned to our experiences, our cravings, and our physical cues while eating. We can think about how the food tastes as we eat it slowly. We can think about if we're eating, we can think about the slight tinge of spinach, for example, or the satisfying crunch of a tortilla chip, or even the warmth of coffee as we drink it. We can also look at the food in front of us, for example, the corn on the cob, and we can think about how it was grown in the farmlands, how it was transported to the grocery store, how it was maybe boiled in our kitchen, and how it's now on our plates. And by doing this, we allow ourselves to practice gratitude in a unique way for both what we're eating and for everything else that had to happen to bring it to us to eat. And so mindful eating can be applied to any food or beverage that we consume, from broccoli to a sandwich to coffee. Next slide. So why should we practice mindful eating? Well, there are several reasons, but here are some of the main ones. So firstly, we can find that practicing mindful eating can actually provide relief from our day-to-day stressors. When we eat mindfully, we're really taking a pause from everything else going around us to relax, to focus, and to enjoy eating our food. And by doing this, we can really check in with ourselves to be mindful of our bodies, both mentally and physically as we're eating. Secondly, mindful eating can also allow ourselves to reflect on our relationship with food. We can think about whether or not we turn to food for reasons other than hunger. Do we eat for comfort? Do we stress eat? Do we find ourselves binging sometimes? And by being aware of these tendencies, we can help to improve them to live a healthier and happier life. Next, we find that mindful eating actually helps to improve digestion, because when we're reflecting on our food and appreciating it, we tend to eat slower, which has been shown to improve our digestion and result in us feeling fuller more quickly, and as a result, feeling more satisfied. Finally, mindful eating can also allow us to make healthier food choices. We can find ourselves reflecting and appreciating the process in which food was made, distributed, bought, and then consumed. And so we can really appreciate healthy foods that are very natural instead of things that are more processed. And this can influence what we choose to eat. Next slide. So here are some ways we can practice mindful eating. So the first thing we can do is really reflect on our grocery list. And it really starts here with what we buy. And we can think about previous times that we've practiced mindful eating. We can think about our tastes, our desires, and we can even reflect on goals that we've set out for ourselves to maybe eat healthier, and we can start there. Secondly, we can come to the table with an appetite. And this one is interesting because we don't want to come to the table when we're starving, because when we're starving, we tend to eat very quickly, and this precludes us from really taking a pause to really appreciate and be mindful about what we're eating. So come to the table with an appetite, but just not when we're starving. The next thing we can do is start with smaller food portions. And this can make mindful eating for, if you're just starting out, it can make it seem less daunting when we start with small amounts of food to really appreciate and go through. Next, we can also bring all of our senses to the meal. We can be aware of the taste of the food, we can be aware of the way it looks, the colors that are involved, and we can be aware of the way that it smells. So just being aware of all of our senses when we're eating. Next slide. The next thing we can do is making sure that we can have a seat when we're eating. So maybe practicing mindful eating at the same place. That can help set routines for us to continue doing it. We can also find that taking small bites and eating slowly helps us to pace ourselves, but also allows us to eat slower so we can reflect on what we're eating and then appreciate it. Again, same thing with chewing thoroughly. And then another option is checking in with our body and noticing when we feel full. So when we're eating slowly and we're appreciating our food, it allows our body it makes it easier for our body actually to let us know when it's full. And being aware of our limits can really help inform us later on the amount of food we feel full with, and also the types of food that we like to eat. And then finally, we can be kind to ourselves. Mindful eating, you can be an experienced mindful eater, you can be new at it, but either way, we want to make sure that we're being kind to ourselves to ensure that we really appreciate what we're eating and that we can reap the benefits from it as well. Next slide.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. So I just want to review all the concepts that our lovely volunteers talked about today. So we talked about setting an intention, so kind of thinking about how can I spend today and feel satisfied. We talked about affirmations, so what kinds of thoughts do I want to cultivate and how will I cultivate that in my own mind. Gratitude, so how can I practice gratitude not only to myself but to others. And breathing techniques, we talked about the difference between diaphragm and chest breathing. We talked about the boxed and 4-7-8 breathing techniques as well. And body scan, I talked about how kind of asking yourself, how do I feel when I pay attention to my body as I move my awareness from one part to another. We also talked about loving kindness. So how can I show compassion to myself and everyone around me? And we talked about thought clouds and thought labeling. So kind of thinking about your thoughts as if they're clouds just passing by without kind of placing judgment on them. And asking yourself, how can I label my thoughts, emotions, and sensations to be more self-aware? And we talked about the 5 senses and also did an exercise just to think about how we can use our 5 senses in our daily lives, wherever and whenever, to enjoy the present moment. And finally, we talked about mindful eating. So how can I be more present with my eating habits? Where does my food come from? And why does food make me feel good? And that is it for our webinar today. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. We hope that these mindfulness and meditation techniques are helpful, and that the demos kind of encourage you to try them out on your own. There are so many different apps available online now, especially during the pandemic, for you to try out. So feel free to reach out to us as well through Dr. Kearney's email if you find any of these techniques helpful. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.